As we wait for your opinions on why you think there's voter apathy, let's look at some of the suggestions that are being put forward to get people to vote, to encourage people to vote. And I'll start with Jude Njomo. He is the sponsor of that particular motion, at least the raft of proposals to get people to have the incentive to register themselves as voters. First of all, as you tell us a bit more about this, is this more about you or is it more about the people?
Actually, this motion was informed by the ongoing second phase of the mass voter registration. As you are aware, there are over 28 registered people who have IDs and who are eligible voters who have their IDs.
Right.
But the only the number that is registered, we have only 12 million people who have been registered. So there is quite a big number, over 14 million, who have not been registered as voters. And therefore, when the IEBC started doing the mass voter registration, we would have expected that a large number will turn up so that they can get registered. The first week, IEBC had a target of 1.4 million, but they attained only 800. So the turnout is very, very low.
Right. Let me ask Bwana Chris Wamalo, the MP for Kiminini, is this the way to go in terms of addressing voter apathy? Real briefly, and then.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I want to say that the motion by Honorable Jude Njomo is an illegality because under Article 38 of the Constitution, it is clearly stipulated that you have the freedom to make political choice. You are free.
Yes.
And by you not coming to vote, it's not a mandatory. And mind that the idea was good, but it cannot be implemented. You can't bring a motion and you say that a committee of parliament to come up with persuasive strategies. They're not implementable. Parliament is there to legislate. You're there to make laws, and you can only make laws which can be implemented. And in fact, about 2-3 days ago, IBC was very clear and he said it's very illegal, particularly to members of parliament. We have those who said that if you have not registered as a voter, you cannot be issued with the bursary or maybe any CDF development. So really, Article 38 of the Constitution is very clear. Unless we amend the Constitution, yes, and we say voting is mandatory.
Right.
As far as you're concerned, that's not the case.
Well, Chris Sando, the opposition, just let me get the gentleman to give the initial response and then we'll dig deeper. Your initial reaction to this particular motion, as well as other attempts to get people, to coerce people to register as voters. What's your position as the IEBC?
Well, Mark, thank you. As Honorable Chris Wamalo has rightly put it, you know, voting is in Kenya is a voluntary exercise.
Right.
And coercing people to go and get a voter's card is not legal in Kenya at the moment, unless otherwise legislated by what Honorable Jude Njomo is trying to do in Parliament. Then it can be otherwise. Right. But as a commission, our position is that voting is voluntary. Getting a voter's card is voluntary. It is the right of the Kenyan citizens to vote, and it is also their free right or free will to go and get an elector's card if they so wish. We do appreciate what some politicians are doing in terms of trying to push up the numbers, but not the methods that are being used.
And we'll speak a bit more about that. Omingo Magara, as the leader of People's Democratic Party and also as someone who wants to run for the Kisii senatorial seat, you definitely want people to come out to vote. But are there better ways to get people to actually practice this democratic right?
Exactly. As I agree quite that it's not legal that we can push people into doing this exercise. It's also important to also learn from what we can do and actualize a better way of doing things. For example, if the Constitution talks about this, and if there's a mischief, the ingenuity, the genuineness of a Kenyan citizen is to address the mischief that the law doesn't by revising it, because it's only people who don't change their minds.
Right.
I'm saying we could change that and make it even better. In fact, I wouldn't even go for the fact that you need to persuade people to come. We should criminalize them, because when you do not vote, you are denying yourself that basic right of representation. And then you start agonizing at the corner. I think what we need to do from the onset is to identify currently, in the current setup, what is it that is ailing us. And I think as we go deeper into this, we have a few issues that we can highlight to change the paradigm and perhaps change the narrative that people must be pushed and persuaded. The tokenism nature of doing things in this country, I think, is a waste of time. Kenyans must take responsibility of choosing the leaders.
We'll break at that point. We'll continue with this, because the issues that are leading to people not having the confidence to even come out and register as voters, and of course practice their democratic right to vote. Coming up on NTV tonight will be this discussion. Also ahead, Wabukala is a man on a new mission, and a helping hand will not be far away. Says everybody for their interests. Kenyans are looking for unga, politicians are looking for votes. Makali says Kenyans are struggling with hunger, thirst, sickness. Voting is not a priority amid such dire situations. Saitoti Peter lastly says provide Kenyans with clean water, better healthcare services, then they will register, and dare I say, vote. Bwana Njomo.
Yeah, I get it. I think we started the discussion a little bit on the wrong foot. Because when we say that we want to introduce persuasive measures, there are a wide range of measures that can be included. And when we were discussing this in Parliament, very good suggestions came from members. One among others is making it very easy for our citizens to obtain their identity card. Today, some people spend months waiting for identity card.
But shouldn't that be the case anyway? You don't have to wait for voter registration. What you really want.
Yes.
Kenyans should be able to get the IDs anyway, so that shouldn't even be an element of persuasion.
If they are not getting, we have a responsibility as leaders to make sure that they get it.
4 years ago, someone would say. Not now, when we're just about to vote.
But if it is not happening right, we have a responsibility of making it right. Two, the other thing we were saying, the IEBC does make the voter register. Now, the registrar of persons registers the people and gives them an ID. The IEBC can contract the registrar of persons to be doing as a continuous process,
right,
to be registering voters, so that when I go to collect my ID, I'll get these guys with a BVR machine and register as a voter. That makes registration very easy. I save time. I don't have to go and make two queues. And two, the government does not have to invest twice.
Here is a point of order.
Yeah, there's a point of order here. I don't want honorable member to continue misleading. It's outlined in the law when you read the IBC Act. It's only IBC which has the responsibility of voter registration. You can't come and claim that you want the National Registration Bureau to come and do this. This is something we've been discussing. In fact, when we've been hearing we want to do the diaspora rep voter registration and involve the ambassadors, it's an illegality. It's only IBC under the law which is mandated to do the voter registration.
Right.
So the honorable member, the idea is good, but to me it should be more of civic education, because when I look at the proposed motion, it's not implementable. It's just, I had a priest somewhere in Embu who was saying that if you do not have a voter's card, we should not give you the Holy Sacrament,
right,
which is also an illegality, and I don't think he meant to do that, because you go there for spiritual nourishment, and you can only receive the sacrament when you are purified. You've done confession and all that. So the issue here is more of a civic education. But if we are to make it mandatory, then we should go to the law and amend the law and make it compulsory that this should be the case. If you go to chiefs, you'll still find there are so many ID cards lying there. People have not bothered to come and collect even those IDs.
Well, they're now calling people individually.
They've tried that.
Yes.
But you see now, this thing is more of a civic education, and maybe we change the law to make it mandatory. Otherwise, Kenyans, we should maybe do a research and understand.
How about change the law to make it mandatory to bring development to Kenyans? Then they'll vote for those who they think are doing their job.
Mark, I want to chip in here. Well, some comments have come in to suggest that this is a priority before the other. We wonder what should come before the other in terms of provision of services, yes, or picking leaders who can give those services. But coming back to what my brother is saying is correct. Yes, the law says this, but we don't sit in a corner and agonize. The law is created for purpose of fitting particular situations, and if there's a mischief, you need to re-engineer and do the right things like he's attempting to do. I think as members of parliament, they understand the fact that there's a problem. How do we come out of it? It's by law. But I also want to go further and say you should not make laws convenient to make people easy, get things easy. People must take responsibility. In fact, voting as a right, when you direct power to people, you must be responsible about who you pick. And right, that can also be part of through legislation, which Chris can also do. So we don't sit and say the law says this, and then you organize and fold your hands. Address the mischief by amending the law. Please help us, and that's why you're there.
But Mark, what I'm saying here is, first, we cannot make voting mandatory. This was discussed at length in Bomas of Kenya during the making of the constitution, and it goes against the Bill of Rights, because you have the freedom of choice. Yeah. You have the freedom to choose whether you want to vote or not to vote. Now, if you vote, these are the consequences. If you do not vote, these are the consequences.
Your attempt is if you vote, then you get some advantages.
Yes. If you want to join a university, you must get C+. If you don't get C+, you cannot claim that you have been discriminated. You have an opportunity to work hard and get a C+. So in the same breath, if you want to work for government, if you want to be a civil servant, if you want to join military, I am saying, if you voted in the last general election, if you are 18, then the recruitment criteria should be such that those who practice their civic right and voted should have an advantage when compared with those who did not vote.
Okay.
Because they have an interest in either removing the government that is in power that they do not want, or they have put in power a government that they think that is going to work. Because like they say, bad governments are elected by good citizens who do not vote. So we want them to come out. We want them to go out there and choose the government that they want to lead them and to bring development. Let them not complain about there is no development and they are not participating. You remember what happened in America in November when they elected President Donald Trump. Immediately he won, people went to streets.
People on the streets and protesting.
Yes. And if you look at the voter turnout in America, it was about 50% of the registered voters.
Well, you want people to come out and vote. You want people to come out and vote, Bonanjomo. But when people hear doubts risen over the process itself to register voters, like what the court leader was saying today, that a former CS is being used in a bid to rig the vote, and there's question to the whole process and to how it is, foolproof. What's your response to this?
Mark, our exercise of voter registration is very transparent. We have published everything, and everything is in the public domain. We know the number of kits, and everybody knows the number of kits that are being used for this mass voter registration. We know what each constituency and each ward is getting. It is in the public domain. If you want to look at that information, it is publicly available in the IBC website. And for us is to do the correct thing by registering voters and making sure that the process is foolproof.
You have to agree, when concerns are raised such as these, whether you call them propaganda or not, it raises questions to the people who would wonder what's the use. So what do you say to what the court leader said today?
Well, we do understand the concerns of the stakeholders out there, including the political players. But what I can guarantee you, Mark, and the viewers, is that the process of cleaning the register, as was articulated by the Commission chairman yesterday in a press conference, where we released the numbers and the figures of the double registrations and the duplicate IDs that we have in the register. We are already in the process of doing that cleanup. As a matter of fact, we have already shared data with the National Registration Bureau, and we have identified 53,000 out of the 128,000 that we have in the register. 53,000 of them that we have identified the real owners of those ID numbers, and we have isolated that data from the register.
And you're investigating those who allegedly are being registered with single-digit or double-digit ID numbers?
There is no current registration with single-digit ID. There is no current registration. This problem is a historical problem. If you look at the register, those ID numbers that are being alluded to were register. It is from the register that was done in 2012, and some of those numbers there are actually real valid ID numbers if you look at them properly. And for those of you who historically know how the ID started in this republic, you'd realize who owns ID number 000, 6 zeros and 1. And 6 zeros and 2 all the way. It is there and it is documented, and this information is available at the National Registration Bureau. So sometimes our officers, when we do the registration, they may the system may eliminate the leading zeros because they're just zeros, but those numbers that are captured that have single entries are actually valid IDs.
All right, let me say this.
As we wrap up, your last comment.
So what I'm saying is, what my brothers are trying to do in Parliament is for the future. We have a situation that we must address. Right, and I can say, without fear of contradiction, that the voter apathy in terms of drive to go and vote is courtesy of our performance as politicians. And it's also reasonable for us to admit that when we falter or error, we must own as part of leadership.
Okay.
I mean, performance is like with tremendous respect with my colleagues, the current parliament has tried, but basically they have not delivered the expectations of people. We try to commercialize politics by giving handouts throughout, and that becomes a culture.
What you call tokenism.
Yeah, tokenism. And that's why I want that people work, stretch their muscle and work. When the Bible says, if you don't work, then don't eat.
But
So
Chris
I'm saying
Omalo,
we
would you take
must-
responsibility as he's saying?
No, I don't think so. Parliament is there to legislate, and when it comes to the issue of voting, it has nothing to do with Parliament. I want to tell you this: we have some people who have already gotten the voters card, but they don't go to the polling centers,
That's
or
right.
they go there, the queue is too long, and they get demoralized. I think it's more of doing the civic education, the critical role, the importance of voting, so that you get the right leaders who are supposed to bring development. But my question to the IBC, because you've seen these cases, there was an incident of His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. We saw that his ID was reading two names. We've seen even the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. The same thing happened. And this goes back to the issue of voters list audit. And I remember very well what we passed in the law, that we want an international firm, reputable international firm with experience in
carry out the
voter
audit.
auditing.
Right.
They came up with a KPMG, which has zero experience as far as the issue of voter auditing is concerned.
So its integrity
until
is
they
in
should
doubt.
be able to tell us what measures have they put place in terms of doing the audit, cleaning this, because we hear of green books, black books, and this is one of the things maybe contribute to voter apathy, because people say the already mechanism of rigging. Anyway, why should I maybe bother to go and
faulty.
vote? So it's
Right.
actually a responsibility of the IBC also to assure Kenyans, to give them that confidence, like that audit. We want to know which firm is going to do this with that experience of voter auditing, so that we remove all these things of duplicates or double registration, and people will have confidence that really, if I'm going to do the voting, my right is going to be
A
respected.
few seconds response, and then June Jomo to...
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think what Honorable Chris Omalo is talking about, we need to appreciate the historical perspective of all this, and that as a commission, we are looking forward to ensuring that we've learned from those mistakes, and that going forwards, we correct those mistakes, and that is what we are doing. In terms of the cleanup of the voter register, we are currently doing the cleanup of the voter register, as I had mentioned earlier, and we will continue to be doing that, because, as you've rightly said, you passed a law in Parliament to mandate us to audit the register.
And there will be a verifiable register.
Yes, and we went out and solicited for a reputable firm, as you rightly said, but this was through an open process, and we got what we got, but I don't want to comment much on it, because it's a matter now that is in court.
Right.
And yeah.
All right, June Jomo.
Mark,
Quickly.
our Kenyans are overburdened in many ways, and one of the ways is by the documents that we make them carry. We make the Kenyan to carry an ID card, we make the Kenyan to carry a driving license, we make him carry a voter's card. One of the way of persuading our voters is to make it very, very easy for them. I do not want to believe what Mheshimiwa Wamalo have said, that we cannot change these laws. Why should the government have so many...
I never say that.
Why should we have
said it can be implemented right now?
Yeah.
Yes, but the government is having so many databases. The registrar or registration bureau have a database.
Your point to this end?
That we have to change our ways. That when we do register, we can use one common database that can be shared by the registration bureau, by the National Transport Authority, by the IEBC. This would make it very, very easy, and it will also be a cost saving to the government to have a common database that would be used for all.
And many have commented, and they say also in your name, in the same breath, you're saying we have to change our ways. Also, the members of parliament have to change their ways and deliver to the
Give
people.
people reason
and
to vote.
That will give them.
And then
a
because to give
reason
them power.
to vote.
That I accept. If there is anything that we can do to provide better leadership, we are open to correction.
I have a last comment to the IBC. When you read the Elections Act,
Really quick.
The Elections Act, it says, if somebody has a certificate of registration, that's what we commonly call waiting card.
Right.
They should be allowed to register as voters.
Okay.
I don't know why in the implementation IBC has not allowed this, and the motion came to Parliament to allow, because it's provided for in the statute.
Right.
And
To make
there
it
was a
easier
motion
for someone to be able
If
to
somebody
register.
has a waiting card and it's been given, they should be allowed to
All right.
register as voters. Why has that
Thank you,
not
Bwana
been
Chris
implemented?
Omala.